Annabel and Janet were inseparable, sharing every moment from their school days to their dream of working together. But on the day of their big interview, a horrifying twist shattered everything. Annabel's face appeared as a monstrous nightmare to everyone, including the CEO. Who could have done this to her? And why? But most importantly, what will be her fate? The shocking truth will leave you breathless.
Like and subscribe.
Janet and Annabel had been inseparable during their university years. From the moment they met, their bond grew so strong that they became more like sisters than friends. They did everything together: eating, playing, shopping, studying, and even sitting together during exams. Whether it was late-night study sessions or weekend hangouts, they were always by each other's side. However, despite their deep friendship, they were very different in character. Annabel was highly intelligent and academically inclined, often spending hours buried in her books, aiming for the best grades. Janet, on the other hand, was more carefree and outgoing, preferring social events and outdoor activities over studying. She barely read for exams and struggled with academics, but she managed to make it to her final year largely because of Annabel's constant support. Annabel tutored her, helped with assignments, and encouraged her, ensuring she stayed on track despite her laid-back attitude. The long-awaited day finally arrived, the release of the final year results. Excitement filled the air as students rushed to the notice board, eager to see the outcome of their hard work. Chatter and laughter echoed through the hallway as some celebrated while others nervously searched for their names. Annabel and Janet pushed through the crowd, their hearts pounding with anticipation. As they reached the board, Annabel scanned the list quickly, and the moment her eyes landed on her results, she let out a joyful gasp. She had passed with flying colors. Her dedication and countless study hours had paid off. Relief and happiness washed over her as she turned to Janet with excitement. Janet, however, was not as fortunate. Though she had managed to pass, her results were far from impressive. A sinking feeling settled in her chest as she compared her grades to Annabel's. She forced a smile, congratulating her friend, but deep inside, a storm was brewing. A seed of jealousy had begun to take root in her heart. She had always relied on Annabel's help, and now, watching her friend bask in success while she barely scraped through made her feel inadequate. As Annabel hugged her in excitement, Janet struggled to suppress the resentment creeping in. For the first time, their friendship felt different, an invisible wall beginning to form between them, one that neither of them had anticipated. The next morning, Janet approached Annabel with a solemn expression. She told her that her mother had fallen ill and that she needed to travel to her village immediately. Concern flashed across Annabel's face as she reached for Janet's hand. "Oh no. I'm so sorry. Do you want me to come with you?" Annabel asked, her voice filled with worry. Janet quickly shook her head. No, it's not that serious. She just needs rest and some medication. I'll be back soon." Though still concerned, Annabel respected her friend's decision. She gave Janet a warm hug and said, "All right then, travel safely. Please send my greetings to your mother." With a small nod, Janet picked up her bag and left. True to her word, Janet returned the following day. Annabel welcomed her back with open arms, relieved to see her friend again. "How's your mom now? Is she feeling any better?" she asked eagerly. Janet smiled faintly and nodded. "Yes, she's taking her medication and should be fine soon." Annabel sighed in relief. "That's good to hear. I hope she recovers quickly." She reached for Janet's hand and gave it a reassuring squeeze. Annabel's birthday arrived the next day, bringing excitement and joy. Before the sun had fully risen, Janet was already at her bedside, waking her up with cheerful birthday wishes. "Happy birthday, Annabel," she said enthusiastically, her face lit up with a warm smile. Annabel rubbed her sleepy eyes and grinned. "Thank you, Janet." With a playful twinkle in her eyes, Janet pulled out a small, elegant box and handed it to her. "Here, this is for you." Curious, Annabel opened the box and gasped. Inside lay a beautiful, shiny necklace, its delicate design shimmering in the morning light. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she threw her arms around Janet in a tight hug. "Thank you so much. This is beautiful," she exclaimed, her voice filled with genuine appreciation. That evening, as they sat together chatting, Janet suddenly suggested, "Why don't we submit our CVs together and attend job interviews as best friends?" Annabel's eyes lit up with excitement. "That's a fantastic idea. It would be amazing to start this next phase of our lives together." Janet smiled, nodding in agreement. On the surface, she seemed just as enthusiastic, but deep down, she had her own reasons for the suggestion. While Annabel saw it as an opportunity to grow together, Janet saw it as a chance to prove that she, too, could succeed, perhaps even outshine her friend. On the morning of their first job interview, Annabel carefully dressed in her best attire, ensuring she looked professional and elegant. As a finishing touch, she clasped the beautiful necklace Janet had given her around her neck. Admiring herself in the mirror, she smiled, feeling a surge of confidence. "Janet, I can't thank you enough for this gift," she said warmly, turning to embrace her friend. Janet returned the hug, forcing a smile. "You deserve it, Annabel. Let's go and make today a great one." Stepping out together, they walked side by side, their spirits high with anticipation. The sun was shining, and the streets buzzed with life. But just as they passed a group of children playing nearby, an unexpected scene unfolded. Suddenly, the children let out terrified screams and scattered in different directions. "Masquerade! Masquerade!" they shouted in fear as they ran away. Annabel and Janet came to an abrupt halt, exchanging bewildered glances. "What nonsense are these children saying?" Annabel muttered, frowning. Janet laughed nervously. "Maybe they're playing a game." But as Annabel glanced around, an uneasy feeling settled in her chest. Something about the children's terror didn't seem like mere play. As they continued walking, Annabel tried to shake off the unsettling feeling from the children's reaction. However, just a few steps ahead, a group of young men approached them, their eyes widening in amusement before they suddenly burst into laughter. "See this one. She looks worse than my village masquerade," one of them jeered, pointing directly at Annabel. Another young man clapped his hands and bent over with laughter. "Ha ha ha! This is unbelievable," he exclaimed. Their laughter grew louder, drawing the attention of passers-by. Some people stopped to watch, whispering among themselves, while others chuckled quietly. Annabel's heart pounded. She glanced at Janet, confusion and embarrassment washing over her. "Janet, are you sure these boys are not laughing at us?" she asked in a low, uneasy voice. Janet waved dismissively. "No, my dear. They're just being childish. Ignore them," she said with a forced smile. Annabel wanted to believe her, but something felt off. Why were both children and adults reacting this way? She subtly glanced at her reflection in a nearby shop window, but everything seemed normal. Still, an inexplicable sense of dread crept over her. As they walked on, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, something she had yet to understand. When they arrived at the towering glass building for their interview, Janet and Annabel exchanged nervous glances. Their hearts pounded as they stepped into the grand office, the air thick with tension. The CEO, a stern-faced man in his 50s, sat behind an enormous mahogany desk. The moment his eyes landed on them, his expression twisted in a way that sent a chill down Annabel's spine. His jaw tightened, his fingers curled slightly, and for a brief moment, he looked as though he had seen something repulsive. There was an awkward silence before he finally spoke. His voice was sharp, laced with irritation. He picked up Janet's CV and scanned it quickly, his frown deepening with every second. "Your results are too poor," he said bluntly. "I can't employ someone with such a record. This company does not have room for mediocrity." Janet swallowed hard, her fingers trembling as she stepped back. Annabel, determined to make a good impression, quickly stepped forward and presented her CV with a confident smile. The CEO hesitated before taking it. His cold eyes flicked through the pages, and for the first time, his lips curled slightly. He murmured, nodding slowly. This is exactly the kind of academic excellence I need. Annabel's chest swelled with pride, but before she could speak, his expression darkened. His gaze shifted back to her face, and he shook his head in disapproval. However, he continued, his voice dropping into a cruel whisper, I cannot employ you because of your face. Annabel stiffened. My face? She echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, he said, his tone filled with disgust. You look like something out of a nightmare. I don't know what is wrong with your face, but I can't have you here scaring my clients. A heavy silence filled the room. The CEO turned back to Janet. I will employ the first person that came here. Janet, you start work immediately. Annabel, leave my office. Annabel stood frozen, humiliation burning through her like fire. Annabel's heart pounded in her chest as she stumbled through the crowd, her mind racing. The stares, the snickers, the whispers, each one felt like a dagger. She could feel their eyes burning into her back as she hurried down the street, the humiliation weighing heavy on her. The laughter followed her like a shadow, mocking her every step. Her head spun with confusion, trying to make sense of what was happening. What had she done wrong? She pulled the mirror from her handbag, her hands shaking uncontrollably as she stared into it. Her reflection stared back at her, but there was nothing out of place. Her makeup was flawless, her hair perfectly styled. She scanned her outfit. No rips, no stains. Nothing seemed off, yet the laughter continued to echo in her ears, making her question her own reality. Was this really happening? Why were they laughing at her? Annabel's feet felt heavy as she trudged toward her street, her mind clouded with confusion and shame. Just as she turned the corner, a man in a white shirt and black trousers stepped forward, blocking her path. His face was calm, his eyes filled with kindness. I am Pastor James, he said with a reassuring smile. I have a message from God for you. Annabel wiped her tear-streaked face, looking at him warily. A message from God? She echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, my daughter. Your someone orchestrated this humiliation because she is jealous of your success. But do not be afraid. God has seen your pure heart, and he will deliver you today. Annabel's lips trembled. What are you saying, Pastor? Pastor James' eyes darkened with urgency as he glanced at the necklace around her neck. The necklace you are wearing is the reason for your misfortune. It was given to you with evil intent so that people would see you as a masquerade and reject you everywhere you go. Remove it now. Annabel shook her head, confused. Sir, with due respect, I don't think you are correct. This beautiful necklace was given to me by my best friend and roommate, she explained, holding on to it. That's the point, Pastor James added firmly. It was given to you to bring you down and humiliate you. Her breath hitched. Could it be true? Her mind raced with memories of her best friend. Doubt and fear battled within her, but Pastor James' unwavering gaze gave her courage. With trembling fingers, she unclasped the necklace, her heart pounding. The moment it slipped from her neck, a powerful gust of wind swirled around her, wrapping her in a comforting embrace. A deep peace washed over her like a river, lifting the heavy burden from her soul. She exhaled, knowing something had changed. Where are you coming from? The pastor asked. Annabel explained everything that had happened that day at the company, including how she lost the job. Who is Janet? The pastor inquired. She is my best friend and roommate, Annabel replied, her voice shaking. She was the one who got the job. Take me to the company. We need to expose this wickedness, Pastor James instructed. When they arrived at the company, the CEO was taken aback to see Annabel again. His face darkened with anger as he glared at her. You again, he exclaimed. I thought I told you never to come back here. Do you want to scare my staff and clients away? His voice boomed through the reception hall, drawing the attention of onlookers. Pastor James, unfazed by the CEO's outburst, stepped forward with urgency. "Sir, please, hear me out," he said firmly. "This young woman is not what she appears to be. She was bewitched by her so-called best friend. The necklace she wore was a charm designed to make people see her as a masquerade. She had no idea she was under a spell." Gasps filled the room as murmurs spread among the employees. Some exchanged shocked glances, while others whispered among themselves. The CEO's expression shifted slightly, torn between disbelief and curiosity. Could this really be true? Was it possible that Annabel had been a victim of witchcraft all along? Without hesitation, the CEO summoned Janet to his office. She arrived with a confident stride, but as soon as she saw the stern faces staring at her, she hesitated. "Janet," the CEO said firmly, "this pastor claims that Annabel was bewitched. That the necklace she wore was a charm designed to make people see her as a masquerade. Do you know anything about this?" At first, Janet shook her head vigorously. "No, I don't know what he's talking about," she insisted. "This is all a lie." But as the pressure mounted and the weight of accusing eyes bore down on her, her composure crumbled. Her hands trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes. "Please forgive me. It was the devil's work," she cried, falling to her knees. The employees outside the office, who had gathered to witness the unfolding drama, leaned in, eager to hear what she had to say. Through sobs, Janet began to confess. "I don't know if you can still remember the day I told you I was going to visit my sick mother in the village," she said, looking at Annabel. "I never went to the village. And my mother was never sick." A heavy silence filled the room as she continued. "I was jealous of Annabel's success. It hurt me that she was always ahead of me. No matter how hard I tried, she outshined me in everything. I couldn't take it anymore. So, I sought help from a friend named Belly, who took me to a witch doctor. I told the witch doctor that Annabel always overshadowed me and that I wanted to ruin her chances of success." She paused, her voice breaking. The witch doctor prepared a charm in the form of a necklace. Shocked gasps filled the room, thick with tension. Annabel's hands trembled as she shook her head in disbelief, her voice cracking with pain. "After everything I did for you, after all the love and sacrifices, this is how you repay me? You had the heart to betray me like this?" Her eyes filled with tears. "What you did is no different from poisoning me. So, if I hadn't met Pastor James, my life would have been completely destroyed." The CEO, disgusted, narrowed his eyes at Janet and ordered coldly, "If this so-called charm truly holds power, then let it work on you as well. Put it on." Janet's face turned pale. She shook her head violently, stepping backward in fear. "No! Please, no!" she shrieked, her voice cracking with desperation. But the crowd had seen enough of her deceit, and their patience had run out. Hands reached for her, gripping her arms as she thrashed in panic. Someone unclasped the necklace from Annabel's neck and, despite Janet's furious protests, forced it around her own. The moment the charm rested against her skin, an unearthly shriek tore from Janet's throat. Her body convulsed as if an unseen force had gripped her soul. She clawed at the necklace, at her own throat, at her hair, wild with terror. Then, as if a dam had broken inside her mind, she bolted. Screaming incoherently, she dashed through the office, knocking over chairs, scattering papers, and leaving a trail of chaos in her wake. Her eyes, once filled with cunning malice, were now wide with horror. The CEO simply shook his head, his expression grim. "This is appalling," he declared. "Janet, you are no longer welcome here. You are fired." Janet did not hear him. She was already running, her screams fading as she disappeared into the streets, her mind lost to madness. Silence fell over the office. The employees, stunned by the turn of events, exchanged wary glances. It was Annabel who finally broke the tension. Relieved, she stepped forward and met the CEO's gaze. His demeanor softened as he turned to her. "Annabel, if you are still interested, the job is yours." A warm smile spread across Annabel's face, free from the darkness that had threatened to consume her. "Thank you, sir. And thank you, Pastor James," she added, turning to the pastor who had guided her through the ordeal. As she watched Janet disappear into the unknown, one truth became clear: jealousy and deceit destroy from within. Not everyone who calls themselves a friend is truly one. True friends do not seek to bring each other down, they lift each other up. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.
Like and subscribe.